to build a cluster, you concentrate in a given territory companies of the same domain. I don't know, chemistry in Germany or film in Los Angeles. You concentrate these companies and labs, and from this concentration, you can expect a lot of creation of wealth by what we call positive externalities, new opportunities, new jobs, and so on. We had a second vision very recently from Richard Florida. And Richard said to create wealth in a given territory, you have to concentrate talents, individual talents, in what he calls the underground of the territory. You concentrate the talent, you concentrate the Steve Jobs and so on. And from this concentration of talent, you attract the talents, you can expect the creation of wealth. And so we looked at these two different policies, which are different, and we said there is something missing. The something missing is this doesn't guarantee that ideas could go from, let's say, the underground to what we call the upper ground, the companies, and vice versa. So what we need in a territory is this intermediate level, which we call the middle ground, which would enhance the ideas, brings the idea to the surface, from the ideas from the Steve Jobs and so on to the surface, and then bring them to the upper ground and vice versa. So what maybe makes a territory creative is not only concentrating industries, not only concentrating talents, but building middle ground, which facilitate the discussion of ideas according to economic geography philosopher Ashamin. He says 3 components. The components are the following. The first are places, like this one, like Phi, or like in Montreal, there are a lot of places, like La SAT, Société des Arts Technologiques, or La TOU. These are places where people from the underground can express the ideas, and people from the ground listen to the ideas and validate the ideas and bring the ideas together. So you need places. You need also spaces. Spaces are cognitive places. You need universities, you need McGill, you need the team of Richard to bring the ideas and exchange the ideas to the world. So you need spaces. He said you need also events. Events are very important because they bring people from the outside, from international environment, to the local, and mix the local and the global. So events are very important. And you need also projects. Project is to bring communities together to do something together. To give you an example that fascinates me, in Montreal, I heard that Expo 67 was an opportunity to bring all the people from Montreal together, to work together as a community, and this put Montreal in a map.
Where I am at Sustainable Development Technology Canada, we have a particular space that we're trying to create, and the challenge is bridging it to the ecosystem across the country. And I also think that in a bit in contrast to what Patrick is saying, that Canada has some unique challenges when we try to do that. So just to give you a little context to understand the space that we come from in clean technologies. So at Sustainable Development Technology Canada, we are the preeminent funder of clean tech in Canada on behalf of the federal government. So in fact, if you're Canadian in the room, on behalf of taxpayers like you. And over 15 years, what the government has asked us to do is to invest in what we're calling today startups, or small and medium-sized enterprises, with ideas to transform really any goods producing sector in the country. And so we invest in everything from today different kinds of solar panels to smart metering, to those kinds of things, to agricultural precision kinds of technologies, to, in fact, enhanced oil and gas kinds of technologies, with the idea being that we're looking for transformational ideas that can be applied in all of Canada's leading sectors to take us to the next level of economic and environmental prosperity. And we really have been asked by the government to do that with small and medium-sized companies, with the idea that that's a really important element of where innovation comes from. Now, the challenge has been for us, and we have the privilege of working with about 120 companies right now and 300 since inception. The challenge is we've created this amazing critical mass of startups with great ideas that then are actually now struggling to scale up or to sell their markets into a small domestic economy that is Canada, because there aren't that many, perhaps, large multinationals interested in dealing with dealing with a more, what they perceive to be a more risky startup kind of company. And there's no middle ground Canadian independent medium-sized companies that really have understood that kind of niche and are willing to bridge that risk between the larger companies and the smaller. But so given all that, we have this great opportunity in the subsector of clean tech to take a cohort of amazing entrepreneurs to the next level. And what we're struggling with at the moment is creating the space that you're talking about, Patrick, with how you connect when there's actually a void in the middle of the larger companies and the smaller and the broader ecosystem of uptake.
The principle of the middle ground applies across a whole range of inventive, creative sectors. Is Canada good at developing that middle ground? And I think my answer to that is it depends on the province. Some provinces and some sectors are good, but as a country connected in having a well thought through, well presented, policy-based approach to that middle ground, I'm not sure Canada is that good. But having said that, Dan, I would struggle to pick a country of the geography of this that is good. So if I look at the countries that are good, they're always the same ones. So the exceptions, there's Singapore. Korea is relatively good at this. Japan has been fairly positive in this. We all talk about Finland, we all talk about Sweden. But it's very difficult for Canada to take that kind of model and apply it to a country of this geography and of this breadth of culture. And I think culture's the other thing that perhaps I should comment on now. And it really picks up on Patrick's comments. From being an observer and sometimes an interlocutor with Canadian policymakers over the last few years, your culture of innovation is one which is waxed and waned really very significantly under different governments. I'm an academic now, so I can talk about different governments with a degree of impunity, provided you let me out the country again. But it's been difficult to see that Canada has walked the walk on innovation the way it's talked the talk. So Canada's talked about being an innovative place. It's talked about taking that invention, turning it through into productivity gains and turning it into new jobs. But if we look at the way the policies have actually been articulated, that's much less evidently the case. Innovation policy shouldn't just be thought about in terms of industrial policy or IP policy or investment policy. It needs to be the policies and the broader framework conditions that impinge on innovation. And a country like yours, with much devolution into provinces, really do need to see a way of provincial policy and federal policy across the supply side and the demand side being more focused on that central goal of driving productivity. So the middle ground is important. It is exactly that. It is the middle ground. But that supply-demand side integration has to enable the middle ground to flourish.
I'm French and living in Canada, and there is something very important for the middle ground. Middle ground supposes that communities exchange freely, that the silos are broken, and that, for instance, a CEO could speak to a student, and a student could speak to workers, and so on. So this is extremely important for the exchange of ideas. In Canada, at least in Montreal, where I know, it's possible. It's I think, one of the bonuses that I can find here in Canada. In France, it's impossible. You know, a CEO in France speaking to a student and exchanging ideas is not yet possible. So I can, believe me, do believe me. And so I think in terms of building middle grounds, Canada has an advantage compared to some countries, at least like France. So we looked at these two different policy, which are different, and we said there is something missing. The something missing is this doesn't guarantee that ideas could go from, let's say, the underground to what we call the upper ground. You have to concentrate talents, individual talents, in what he calls the underground of the territory. You concentrate the talent, you concentrate the Steve Jobs and so on. And from this concentration of talent, you attract the talents, you can expect the creation of wealth. And you concentrate in a given territory companies of the same domain, I don't know, chemistry in Germany or film in Los Angeles. You concentrate these companies and labs, and from this concentration, you can expect a lot of creation of wealth by what we call positive externalities, new opportunities, new jobs, and so on. We had a second vision very recently from Richard Florida. And Richard said to create wealth in a given territory, to build a cluster,